Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 14th, 2022 meeting of the Haverford Township Planning Commission. Kelly, would you call roll, please?
I'm going to ask Marsh to please call roll.
Mr. Capuzzi,
Present.
Mr. Shannon, Ms. Dobbs, Mr. Fiordamondo, Mr. Garrett,
Here.
Ms. Phillips, Mr. Montresor.
You guys all hear me okay? Yes?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right, good, all right. Well then, I ask everyone to rise and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. The reason I'm not there in person is I was attended a wedding on Saturday night, and the people I was sitting next to contracted COVID on Monday. So I was tested yesterday. I don't have my test results back, but my wife's tests came back and they're negative. So out of caution, I just felt it'd be better if I don't come in person tonight. So please excuse my absence, but I think it's in the best interest that we do it this way tonight. The first item on our agenda is the preliminary final minor subdivision plan for 1801 Manor Road. The applicant is Sleepy Valley Holdings. And is there someone here? Is that Dennis?
Good evening, Ange. Yes, it's Dennis.
Okay. Welcome, Dennis. And why don't you update us on, I know you had a meeting with some of the neighbors, and I think you made some changes to the plan. Why don't you update for us those changes?
Yes, we made an effort to save or preserve the holly trees bush, which is between our property and the northern neighbor, the Pitmans, as it's shown on my plan, 1809 Manor Road. So we moved the proposed house to the south 2 feet to create a 10-foot side yard on both sides to give us a little more separation space for that holly. We've also agreed that we'll make an attempt to save the evergreen tree that's there, but it's really not in good shape, and more than likely, once we start digging the foundation, that tree will not survive the digging of the foundation. But that is the significant change that we made to try to keep something there that was being torn down. We also attended the tree commission meeting recently and agreed on the 4 trees that you see in the rear yard and the species for those trees, swamp white oak and eastern red cedar. We've also agreed that we'll be putting 2 trees on the neighbor's lot to the north at 109 along the line where the evergreen tree has come down. But for now, those trees are going to be just shown as shipped and then placed once it's agreed upon with the owner as to where they go. So therefore, we're requesting a waiver to pay a fee in lieu of for nine proposed trees. We are proposing 2 magnolia in the front for replacement of the magnolia that we're taking down as street trees. And one of the comments in the engineer's letter is about the placement of that, and we're looking for 2 locations where we can put those 2 trees so that they're 6 foot behind the right-of-way line. Most likely it'll be on the corner of, the two corners of Lot 1, 30 foot apart is where those two trees will go. We're looking to see if we can put one in between the two, the stormwater bed and the line between our lot and Lot 10, Lot 2 and 1809, but there's not a lot of space in there. And we don't want it to grow into the seepage bed. So that's pretty much the result of our meeting with the neighbors and the tree commission.
Did the Shade Tree Commission give you a formal approval of your landscape plan?
I wasn't at the meeting, but it's my understanding that they did.
Okay,
I haven't seen the official letter yet.
okay. And I see we have a recent letter from the township engineer dated April 13th.
Yes, and I can go through that letter if you would like. Essentially, we will comply with all of those comments that were made, and we'll revise the plans to adequately address all of those 11 comments.
Chuck Faulkner, is there anything in your letter that you'd like to speak to specifically?
Just a couple things, Angelo, if I may. One of the concerns I think we discussed possibly last time was just the proximity of the basin, the stormwater management basin underground in the front to both the house, the driveway, and just the details of that whole basin there, trying to prevent any water intrusion into the basement, making sure that all the facilities there have the proper amount of covers on them, heavy duty traffic rated covers, that the ones that are in the driveway and everything. So I think that was a lot of our concern at that point.
How far is the bed from the basement wall?
I believe that's 10 feet.
10 feet, okay.
And
And your suggestion is that that wall be waterproofed?
I would like to see something done. I mean, I know the applicant did revise the bed and raise it. I believe it was a foot, if I'm not mistaken, Dennis.
We raised the basement a foot.
basement, I'm
So
sorry.
that the bottom of the bed
Stand
was
corrected,
below,
yeah.
yes. And we will agree to put a waterproofing system in along that wall. I believe it's a regular course of the building that the developer does. He does waterproof the entire foundation and basement wall, but we will agree to do waterproofing and drainage in there to make sure that the water is taken away from that area.
Dennis, do you know if they normally put in foundation drains?
They do,
They do?
yes.
Okay. All right, I'll open it up to the board. Let's see. Let's start with Jack tonight. Jack, you have any comments?
Well, I've been studying this, and I wanted to hear what the neighbors have to say about this. But one of the things that I thought I heard you say is that the Shade Tree Commission asked you to save the evergreen adjacent to the house, and you don't think that you're going to be able to save that, or you don't think it will survive?
The neighbors asked us to save the evergreen tree.
Is
and we-
that the 24-inch blue spruce
Yes.
marked to be removed?
Yes, that's correct. We're showing it to be removed. We're going to make an effort, but its root zone is clearly in the overdig of the foundation. And that tree has a terrible lean to it. It's not in good shape. The arborist has given a report to the tree commission, and they've agreed that the tree is not in the best of shape.
I really don't give very much credence to what the arborist says about this, because the arborist told Asplund to trim the side that touches the electrical wires for the last 25 years. So I kind of disagree with what an arborist says in this respect, because that tree only needs to be removed because you're building a house in its root zone. So I'm interested to hear what other people say. There isn't anything else, Angelo, that I'm particularly interested in hearing about right now. But I feel like we are putting the house ahead of the rest of the property in this whole situation. All of these trees are secondary to the house. All of the stormwater management, which we require, appear to be secondary to the house. Even the zoning requirements are secondary to the house at this point. And I'm concerned about where we're going with this.
The house meets the ordinance requirements in every way.
The ordinance doesn't say you can do whatever you want to everything that exists on the property in order to meet the minimum setbacks.
The ordinance does not prevent us from removing trees if we replace them or pay the fee in lieu of as well.
How does that, that's a great point. How does that fee in lieu of work? Is that something that's already set in the township fees?
No, so generally, and actually, I do believe that they added it to the fee schedule upon the amendment of the ordinance that was a couple months ago. But prior to that, it was based on just the cost of the trees themselves. We got a breakdown from the landscaper saying how much each tree would be worth and put that into the tree fund.
And so the Haverford Township landscaper then plants those trees somewhere else?
Yep.
No further questions right now, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Lou, you have any comments or questions?
Yes, with regard to stormwater management. Several others.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Lou. Are you speaking?
All right, push the button. So sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, I'm just looking at the stormwater management comments. There are another 1, 2, 3, about 5 or 6 more. And I'm curious to know what the outcome is on all those points. They all seem reasonable, so I'm wondering if they were just being adopted or there's some further conversation that's needed there.
So comment 5, we addressed, we're
Right,
going to
you addressed.
waterproof.
Correct.
Comment 6 has to do with the location that we're showing for the construction entrance, which is a temporary erosion control device that's used to prevent dirt from leaving the site during construction. Our plan shows it crossing the sidewalk and going all the way out to the road. The engineer has asked us to move it back beyond the sidewalk, which we will do.
Okay.
The second is the trench drain. There's a trench drain that runs across the edge of the driveway at the property line to capture stormwater and direct it in through piping to the subsurface bed. He's asking that we put a heavy-duty grate on that. The trench drain that we selected is designed for an automobile load. We're going to stiffen that up so that it'll take a highway loading and put a heavy-duty grate in it. Comment 8 is similar. We're showing cast iron clean-out covers on plastic pipe, so we're going to either concrete encase that pipe and that so that the cover sits on it and the pipe is encased so that it'll take the load going across it. They're the only other stormwater management comments except for 11, which has to deal with adding some spot elevations to ensure that when the driveway is built, it's graded properly so that the water gets to the
Right.
basin.
I just wanted to confirm, my perception was that speaks to how you grade.
Correct.
Spot elevations, great. And 9 and 10 under general, they're resolved as well? What would the
They
9
are, as a matter of fact, during a site visit today, we've discovered that the overhead utility line that we're actually showing going from the front to the back does not go to the back and cross over the proposed lot line. It actually goes to the front. And so it's misdrawn on the plan. So that would come off the front line and go along the sideline. So that doesn't cross over that proposed property line now.
Okay, great.
And the 10 is a
Technical.
detail issue that
Right.
we'll put the 2A modified
Great.
in.
Buttoning things down, I pass.
That it, Lou?
That's it.
Okay. Julia, you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, a question about the front materials of the facade of the house. I think last time some of the neighbors expressed concern because the houses in this neighborhood all have a very uniform stone that they're constructed of. And, they were built a very long time ago. So I was just wondering if you've made any updates or changes to the front elevation?
We're going to, and I think their plans were submitted at some point, but we're showing stone facades on the front of the house.
Right, will that stone match the stone that's found in the existing neighborhood as far as scale?
We'll do everything we can to match it as closely as possible. Will it match exactly? I can't say.
I just was curious. Thank you. That was all.
Thank you. Maggie?
Yes, I just wanted to ask about the fee in lieu. So you said the 24-inch blue spruce that you don't think that you'll be able to save, is that included in the fee in lieu calculations?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you're assuming that it's going to be taken out and has been
Correct.
adequately addressed in the compensation calculations?
Correct.
Okay,
Which is why it shows on the plan to be removed.
okay. I don't have anything else. Everyone has addressed my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Maggie. Rob?
You did discuss this previously, but I was curious about item number 9. The drawings indicate there's 3 drawings, 3 of 7, 2 of 7, 5 of 7. There's a lot of repetitive information on each of these sheets. But each one of these sheets indicate the existing overhead electric utility service to be relocated underground on Lot 1 only. What happens to Lot 2?
Lot 2 is new, and that is already shown as being underground. So if you were to look at sheet, I believe it's sheet 2, if you look about 4 feet off of the property line, the northerly property line of Lot 2, you'll see a line that comes from the pole in the front of that house. And it has a line that's dashed with E's in the line. That is an underground electric line.
But what's happening to that line that's there? Is it going to be abandoned?
There is no line to Lot 2 at this
So
time.
the drawing has to be corrected?
Yes, the drawing that's crossing Lot 2 has to be corrected, and that line will be taken off.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
Thanks, Rob. David?
My questions have been asked, and I'd like to hear as well from
I'm sorry, Dave, I didn't hear you.
no questions now.
Okay. Dennis, I have two comments. The item that you're using for your construction entrance, that's, is the applicant on board as far as using that product?
We spoke about that today. He is aware that we're showing it. We could also detail stone and do the same thing. We've just been trying to use that product lately because we feel it's a little better product for these tighter lots. But yes, he is aware that that's what we're showing.
I mean, normally it would be the contractor's responsibility to install that item.
Correct.
And this has to be bought in advance of the work. I just wanted to know whether or not everybody was on board of, as far as buying it and utilizing it.
It's my understanding too that they can be rented for the duration
Oh,
of the
they'll
project.
rent them to you? Okay.
Yes.
I know they're reusable, so. The other comment I have, and Chuck Faulkner, please step in if I misstate anything, but once the subdivision plan is done and approved, and you still have to come back to the township for a stormwater management erosion control permit, correct?
That is correct, Angelo. You need a grading permit to do the work.
Okay, and I'm assuming that the stormwater management system will be reviewed as part of that permit process.
Typically, yeah, it is checked again to make sure everything's in compliance with the plan. And then, obviously, there's some site inspections when everything goes in also.
Okay. Dennis, just a suggestion you might consider, and the seepage bed is all stone
Correct.
except for the distribution pipes. Do you ever consider using like storm tanks or some of those items?
We have
I'm
used
just
them in the past.
suggesting if you tried doing that or using that, it would free up some space for you where you could probably get a little more room to plant whatever trees have to be planted. It might get the seepage bed out of the driveway, things like that.
We can certainly take a look at replacing some of the stone volume with the tank.
Okay, it might cost a few extra dollars, but in the long run, I think the space you gain is well worth it.
We will certainly take a look at that.
Okay. I can't tell, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board?
Thank you.
Help me out, guys. Is anybody there?
There are going to be some people coming forward.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm Joanne Pitman, neighbor at 1809 Manor. So I think I kind of speak for everybody when I say we're not really happy, we're not really on board. It's a nice gesture that they're going to put stone facade on the front of it, but if you drive down the street, I mean, all of our houses are the same. It's got a charm to it. It's got a consistent look. We are happy with that look. We want it that way. We want it to stay that way. It's my understanding that this commission can vote however they want, yes or no, based on, whatever you feel like. I know they meet the ordinances, they meet the code, they meet the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law isn't really there, in my opinion. So I just encourage you, vote no. We don't want it. We've been going to these meetings. None of us want it. They can put a house there, sure, but can they try to make it blend in a little bit better instead of a behemoth that's, copy and paste? Try to keep the charm of our neighborhood instead of wedging this in with a shoehorn. Like you said about, making the trees and everything come secondary. I understand it's a house. So, obviously a house before a tree, but the whole lot is getting messed with in order to fit this structure in there. So I would like to hear from the other neighbors, but I'm pretty sure they're going to say a similar thing. So I just encourage you to vote with your conscience. Thank you for your time.
Mike Dolan, neighbor across the street. Two comments. One is I looked at the plan today, and it looks like they added a new waiver to it that I wasn't familiar with. I don't know if anybody else was familiar with it. It might be a minor one, but it's something with respect to asking for a waiver. So I asked them to explain it as something to do with the driveway and setbacks. Second question is, the storm water to be put where a tree is existing seems to be in contrast to what the whole purpose of the stormwater management is. A larger tree absorbs plenty of water. Cutting the tree down and putting a pit to hold the water, which might already have a high water level, doesn't seem to solve the problem. If the tree it's the magnolia tree, but if it was trimmed down, it would not cover the house, and you could put a driveway on the other side without taking the house down. Now, we realize that trees get older, and they could be impacted when they develop, but if an effort was made to at least try to save them, I think that's really what the neighbors are looking for, to try to blend this house in and keep stuff up. And with respect to the evergreen, which I think is hardy, if it's growing on a certain angle, it's because there was another tree next to it that was cut down. So it's fighting for sun. So I don't think it's a danger. Now, the roots, if they become impacted, that's different. So if someone's willing to make the effort, and it doesn't work, that's okay. We understand that, but at least make the effort. Thank you. And that, I think if you look on the latest one, I think it says waiver to C, ABC. I'm not sure what I just caught it today, so I just noticed that, so. Thank you.
Dennis, oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Hello, my name is Laurie Rofi. I am also a neighbor on Manor Road, and I would not be here tonight if the proposed subdivision line was straight, resulting in new construction of a house that was of comparable size to the rest of the neighborhood. And I'm curious about that subdivision line because it does go over a little bit, instead of going straight, creating a smallish triangle. And if you approve that subdivision line, does that set a precedent for other non-standard division lines going forward for which there really is no basis or need based on the landscape? There's nothing of the way that lot is that would prevent the line being taken straight back. But I understand that you need a lot of a certain size to accommodate the construction that is currently proposed. And also, by taking that little bit of land away from the lot that would to contain the existing house, does that then affect the future owners of the existing house going forward? Is that going to prevent them from making any alterations or expansions of that house out the back because of the proportions or the ratios for square footage on the lot? So those are my questions. And to say, if it was a house of comparable size, I would have no problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Andrew Furman. I live at 1700 Manor Road, so across the street from the proposed lot. Just want to say I mostly agree with the points my neighbors already made. Really wish this house would be more in line with the style of the houses that are already there. I think we already pointed out there are a lot of trees on that property. We like to ideally preserve all the trees, really enjoy all the trees on that property, like the extra green space. So those are my main concerns. So really urge the commission to vote no for this. So thanks.
Hi, my name is Chris Kahal, 1813 Manor Road. I'm 2 doors from the proposed site, and one of the things that concern me is my neighbors that will be living next door. I believe with the way the design of this property is being set up, they're basically going to be looking at a billboard, in my opinion. I firmly agree with everybody that this house, the way it's presently set up and designed, does not fit our neighborhood. One of the main attractions for me to move in this neighborhood was because of the way the houses are built, constructed, and there's a slight variation with them, but they all fit. No different than Fairfield Road. Now, I do understand, this builder has built homes in other areas, but when you look at those homes on those blocks, they don't match. There's a lot of different types of setups, styles, and what have you. It's not the same as what's on Manor Road. So, again, I think one of the things that I'm concerned about too is with the Pitmans that live next door to me is the additional water that they may take on if this property is built as well. I think the size of this building, again, just does not fit our neighborhood, and I'm really concerned about what the future holds for them. So, it's something that really needs to be taken into consideration. The other thing too is that, with the way the property line was moved just to accommodate the home, I agree, that sets a precedent. And I have a unique situation next door to me where I live on a corner. And if I were to reach out to my neighbor next door, is that something we can work out where I can maybe have the property line moved? I don't know the answer to that question. But I think it would be probably very hard to come across and have something like that done. So, it's just amazing that I find that things like this can happen simply for the fact that we're looking to fill that space with a new property and not taking into consideration everything that the neighborhood feels and what they've all moved into to love and appreciate with our town and our street. As far as the trees are concerned, we've had a lot of trees that have been taken out along the neighborhood, and in particular, we've had some large ones taken out. They've been hit by lightning and things of that nature. But there was a tree that was in between the property line between where this new structure is going up and where the Pitmans live, and that tree was robust, it was strong, it was, I just don't understand why that was taken out. I guess it was like August or September of last year. I don't know if that was something that was in the thought process, knowing that the property was going to be sold or what have you, but apparently it was taken out before a certain ordinance or whatever the case may be was taken into consideration. So, I'm concerned about that too, because again, that would be more trees that can be offered to the township if that was taken into consideration. The last thing is I'm worried about our street. Our street is very narrow. And a perfect example is we had a neighbor down the street the other day just have a new driveway put in. And because there's so many cars that are parked on the road, and this was being constructed at the opposite end of my street, the trucks had to park in front of my house at the further end just to unload all their equipment and everything. And I know everybody here is concerned about the traffic and their children walking the streets and what have you. So, we just need to take all this into consideration, and I hope that, think about it yourself. Would you want to be in a situation like this and experience this on a daily basis? And again, I don't even know the length of the proposed construction plan. I don't know if it's, 6 months, a year, I don't know what it is, but just think of how this is going to disrupt our neighborhood. The final thing is that the driveway set up. There is not one house on our street that has a driveway on the front of the house. So if I'm looking off my patio now and I'm looking down the street, I'm going to be looking at 2 minivans or something like that, where I don't have the opportunity now to see the trees and the color and everything else that goes along with the neighborhood. So outside of that, I have nothing else to say other than I just hope you guys think about the decision that you're making and the precedent that you're setting and how hopefully you can make us happy as far as what is ultimately decided, whether it's changes the design of the proposed house being built or maybe even saying no. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Doug Pitman, 1809 Manor Road. Neighbor to Chris, and I know he's probably talking about our stormwater management because he probably saw all the towels. We just had a lot of rain and our basement did take on some water. So that is a concern. The stormwater management is a huge concern to us. We just took on water and now we're worried we're gonna take on even more water. Chris did a fantastic job of laying everything out. My huge concern, biggest one of all, is the driveway in the front that does not go along with any other home on the street. Some people may park in their driveway. Most people park in the back. This will be the only one that's actually designed to park in the front. I guess, frankly, it's really hard, I guess, not to feel a little defeated. Honestly, when we go drive around Haverford Town, we see these homes, these new homes, all over the place, and they're huge and they're massive. But this one, I think the difference is those are all built on existing lots. This is the only one that I know of where a lot is being subdivided for the sole purpose of squeezing in a very large home. One that we're going to be looking at the back of instead of looking down and seeing trees. Right now, if you stand outside our house, you will see either up or down just backyards. You do not see homes. So, yeah, I would encourage you to vote with your conscience, knowing that part of the planning committee, like I just was reading up on what the planning and zoning committee is all about, right, is to improve the quality of the residents, the quality of life for the residents, not to squeeze in a home to improve that quality of that one resident, but all the neighbors that are complaining about this house. We do not think it's going to improve the quality of Havertown. We do not think it's going to improve the quality of our street. It certainly is not improving the quality of the environment. So I think for those reasons, just off the bat, right, those are just a few. There's plenty more, but for those reasons, I would encourage you to vote no. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Hi, good evening. My name's Nicole Baker. I live at 1816 Manor Road. I'm not familiar with the plan and all of the technicalities of what's going on tonight. I am, however, I've been a Havertown resident my entire life. My husband and I decided to invest our money, our hard-earned money, and chose to raise our family on this street because we fell in love with it. And not only is it a neighborhood full of beautiful homes, it's a neighborhood full of kind-hearted, caring people. I take a lot of pride in my home. Anything I work for, I choose to put money back into my investment, my yard, my fence, my flowers, because it's important to me. This is my piece of the world that I've invested in. And Kathy's moving and she's leaving. And she's choosing to, sell this lot to a builder who's going to build a house that's going to change that part of our life. She's not going to be here anymore. So that's a big concern. And I'm only talking about, as a feeling. These are our feelings. This is all we have. I mean, our kids, our neighborhood, we love it. And I'm glad that I chose Manor Road to live my life and raise my children. So anyway, I hope that you will understand how important this is to our investments in our neighborhood and our lives. So thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Brunette. I live at 1804 Manor Road. I wasn't here for the beginning. I rushed here right from work, but I don't know what was said. I'm just going to read you what I've taken the time to write up, and I'm probably, repeating what everybody else has said, but I'm here in opposition of this subdivision as a whole. I understand that if following the codes, there's likely very little that we as the neighbors can do to stop this from moving forward, but I hope the commission will just hear out my concerns and take into consideration the negative impact that this plan will have on our neighborhood. From the beginning, I think that there have been some extremely questionable actions that have allowed this plan to move forward, including the removal of the large heritage tree from a joint property line under false pretenses. It's my understanding that this tree was listed on no submitted plans despite its presence on the property while the initial plans were drawn up in March of 2021. I find it highly questionable in that regard. I also know that this developer has built many new homes here in Havertown, and I've driven around and seen a lot of them. And I presented this information at the Shade Tree Commission. And by my count, at over 20 sites, he's planted 20 trees. That's an average of 1 tree per property. So it's my understanding that he's doing the bare minimum to improve Havertown itself. He's building his houses and he's moving on. His proposal in August of 2021 to the Shade Tree Commission for a separate property plan was commented on by the commission as being unclear, and there were questions about removal of previously existing trees prior to the submission of plans, which is what has happened here. This seems like a pattern to me. I think the most disappointing aspect of this entire process is that these two individuals, the builder and the current owner, one, are not remaining on this property, so they're not there for what happens afterwards, and two, don't even live within Haverford Town. The company that he uses for this is listed on a 2-acre property in Newtown Square, loads of trees. So what does he care if he takes down all the trees? While I understand it's within the property owner's rights to do as she pleases with the property, I personally know that for myself, if I had every neighbor on the street coming to these meetings in opposition, and I was leaving behind them to deal with a year of construction, traffic, trucks, and people who opposed removing the trees from my current property, my conscience would lay heavy. The charm of our neighborhood comes in the conformity of the homes, the age and the character of the stone and brick, the shared driveways that give you access to an unobstructed porch view from the front of your home, which many of us enjoy. The fact that our sidewalks are never blocked by vehicles because everyone has the ability to park in the back of their driveways, making it easy access for our strollers and our kids to ride their bikes up and down. The trees that bloom each spring and the pink magnolia petals that litter the sidewalks. The atmosphere of our neighborhood is in the nature that these trees invite, and for me that includes watching 2 hawks fly up and down my driveway as I live directly across the street from the large pine tree in her property to the large oak that's behind ours. All of this charm is lost if the subdivision is approved. Every single thing I've mentioned is gone when this house begins to be constructed. And while none of this matters to Kathy or Mr. Sposato because they're not living or remaining in the neighborhood, it means a lot to me and my family as we've chosen to live here for the last 9 years. While neither of us are from this area, we've selected this street for this sole purpose, and I know it matters to most of my neighbors. Lastly, I'll reference Township Code regarding subdivisions. I don't know how to read the codes, but it's 160-1, purpose and objectives. Letter B, to promote orderly, efficient, integrated, and harmonious development and redevelopment, which I don't think this does. Letter F, to encourage preservation of adequate open spaces for recreation, light air, stormwater controls, which our street already doesn't have, and maintenance of the character of this township, which this doesn't do. Letter G, to encourage coordination and compliance with the provisions of the comprehensive plan, which I don't believe this follows. I think approving this plan to continue to squeeze in more properties in Haverford Town is a mistake. I think it goes directly against what many people love about this town. And eventually, when there are no more large trees left within the neighborhoods and Haverford Town isn't as desirable as it is now, I fear we'll realize our mistake too late. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I am Kathy Malloy. I own the property in question, 1801 Manor Road. I bought the house 20 years ago with the intention of subdividing it. I knew it was a subdividable lot at the time. There were 20 offers on my property from different builders, including a person in this room, and including Vince Sposato tried to buy it when I bought it. I knew at least 7 or 8 different builders myself at the time. I'm a real estate agent. I knew a lot of people that tried to buy the house. The house is 1801, the Pitmans live at 1809, 1805 is in the middle. Every other house goes by 4. It was built and designed in that capacity. They mentioned a tree that was taken down under false pretenses. PICO wanted to take the tree down a number of years ago when PICO came through. My neighbor, who was at the time dying of COPD, did not want it taken down. We didn't take it down. The entire side of the tree was taken, all the side limbs were taken off on the Pitman side, on the Pitman side, because that's where the electric line runs. It was in bad condition. I had had it cleaned out a number of times. I had spent a lot of money on it. I did have it surveyed in early spring last year for the purpose of knowing exactly where the tree said, so that they're saying that I took down someone else's tree and that it was misconstrued of whose tree it was. I can contact an attorney to make sure it was on my property. It was in fact on my property. So I had contacted a tree company to take it down last spring. They couldn't take it down until PICO approved it because of the lines that run right through it. PICO did not give them the okay until August of last year. I knew nothing about the heritage thing that came up during one of the Shade Tree Commission meetings. They're making it sound like I got it in under the wire. If I could have taken it down earlier last year, I would have. I didn't even talk to Vince until later in the summer, but I had it surveyed earlier. As far as the spruce tree, again, Mike said that there was a tree next to it. There was no tree next to it in the 20 years that I lived there. It's leaning because all of the limbs have been taken off of it from PICO, and the root system is on top of the holly system's tree. So the spruce tree's root system is on top of the holly tree's root system. You can see it on the ground. It does not have, it's gonna come down. I can show you a picture of it, the way that it leans towards my house in the street. And as far as the magnolia tree goes, it's rotted. It is diseased. You can take a look at it. The tree is in awful shape. I love that tree. I would love to keep that tree. The tree is in terrible shape. It's just a mess. It has a split right down the middle. It's got rot in the middle. It has holes in it. It's in terrible shape. So that's what they want to move. But, you know, and as far as they say that it's a cohesive, it was a cohesive. There's a number of people that are here that lived here since I bought the property. I think a lot of people know that when I bought it, a number of people were going to subdivide it. First thing I got a call from my commissioner before I even got back the signed paperwork when I put the offer in for this house, because there was a person in this room that contacted them and wanted to know what the realtor was going to do, only because they tried to buy the house. They didn't get it. He is also a builder. He wanted to buy the house, to build the house, but instead he has riled up everybody for the last few months. Nobody will even look at me at this point in time. So, and they don't know where I'm going to, where I'm moving to, whether it's in the township or not in the township, in the neighborhood or not. That's it. Sorry, a little emotional.
Thank you.
I have one question. I'm just curious, based on all the other committee meetings we've gone to, how do we know how you guys vote? I've never known how to look that up. Like, do you guys vote tonight? Do you vote? You do? And then where can we find out about that?
If I can hop in. So I'm assuming at this point, if we have a clean review letter, the planning commission can choose to make a recommendation tonight. So when we vote, the vote is actually to make a recommendation to the commissioners. We're advisory only.
Okay.
So we have no legal sway, really,
Right.
one way or the other.
Okay.
So we can choose to make comments or certain attachments to whatever recommendation we make. All of that gets incorporated into the meeting minutes, which get posted on the township website, or you can come get a copy here at the township building.
Okay. All right, thank you. And then I just want to reiterate, I guess, what I said earlier, just about the focusing on the quality of life for the residents, just to keep that in mind. When you guys do, I guess, make your, however you want to advise, I guess not vote, but advise.
Recommendation.
Recommendation, sorry. All right, thank you. Thank you.
If I could just respond, because I think I am the person the applicant is talking about. I am a builder, I am a developer, I am a realtor. I do live on a street. I'm aware I lived in there before the owner bought it. I never thought it could be subdivided. I never made an offer on it. I thought, and I still think, the value of the property as an oversized lot makes sense. I know Vince. I think Vince is a good builder. I think he builds a good house. He can't build the same house as we have there. It would be too expensive for the style. He could, or he could change, fit it in there. That's why I'm saying move things around, I'm not fighting him on it. But, I develop properties in different townships. I never thought you could put a angled lot in there. The house that's existing is offset 20 feet. That's why you have to do it. I mean, it's almost better that they came in for a variance for an undersized lot, make a straight line, but so No, I did not try to buy it. I think it's a nice house. I think it's a nice lot. I think you could do something with that, interesting, but that's more of a customized feeling. So, thank you.
Kelly, was there discussion at the zoning hearing board when the variance was granted related to the angle of the property line?
It was discussed, but not part of the variance application itself. The reason that the developer chose to seek a variance for, I'm sorry, the reason that the developer chose to create that line, which everybody agrees is not ideal, was to save the existing house instead of building 2 new houses, which could have been done by right, would not have needed any variances, and could have provided 2 perfectly rectangular lots. I think the intent of, the not ideal lot line, the variance for the existing porch that encroaches into the front yard setback to remain was to help preserve the character of the neighborhood and not build 2 houses, which would have been completely by right, not needed any relief, by keeping one of the houses that is existing and just building 1 new. Did that answer your question? I feel like I went on too
I'm sorry,
long about
it's,
that. No, yes.
it's by right without a subdivision?
No, it's a by right subdivision, meaning that it meets all the zoning requirements.
If you
I think
destroy everything on the lot first.
If you meet all of the regulations and everything in the ordinance, then it's a by right plan.
Thanks, Al.
And Kelly, another
Let
question.
me address a couple
on this
points.
line.
First, let me say something about stormwater management. And I understand how you might be concerned about additional runoff and things like that, but the township has a very strict ordinance as far as controlling runoff from a newly developed property. And the township engineer can go into a little bit more detail, but I believe this system is designed for a 100-year storm, which is basically all the impervious that's created by the new development is captured and recharged into the groundwater, which is what the ordinance requires. So being an engineer myself, I tend to believe the science, and the science says that this will not create a flooding problem for adjacent properties. Secondly, we can't just vote no because we don't like a plan. I personally agree with a lot of the comments you're making. Unfortunately, the Planning Commission is bound by the rules and regulations of Haverford Township. The lot line, the fact that it's angled, that's not ideal, but there's nothing in the ordinance that says you can't do that. And we can't arbitrarily say, well, we don't like the subdivision because the lot line is angled. We have no control over aesthetics. You may not like what the house looks like. We may not like what it looks like, but there's nothing in the code that says we can control what a house looks like. If the developer wants to build something and it meets all the building code requirements, at least from a planning commission perspective, we don't have any power or any type of ways to prevent him from building what he wants to build. Again, as long as it complies with the code. As far as the trees go, we rely strictly on the recommendations of the Shade Tree Commission. The applicant went to the Shade Tree Commission, explained their plan, and apparently the Shade Tree Commission was satisfied with the plans that were presented. So to a large degree, our hands are somewhat tied. We have to be able, if we deny a plan, we have to have a reason to deny it that'll stand up in a court of law. And unfortunately, there's nothing in the township engineer's letter that states that, the plan is illegal. So we kind of are bound by our obligation to the commissioners to review the plan to ensure that it complies with the township codes. And that's about all we can do. And again, we can recommend approval, but we don't grant approval. It's up to the Board of Commissioners to make that final approval.
I just had a couple comment and a question. Yeah, Rebecca Brunette at 1804, directly across the street. So it's my understanding, and I don't know the exact terminology, but that the builder has applied for some kind of variance to forego like step 3, where he has to come back and, is that right, step 3 or something? Yeah, where once it's built, it's just approved and nobody goes back and checks. So as far as like the stormwater management, especially within the entire township, I mean, like, does anybody ever go back and actually check that it's actually controlling stormwater? Or is that just something that we assume hopefully happens and then we don't check with the neighbors in the neighborhood?
The-
Sorry,
Go ahead.
I can answer
Go ahead,
that for
Chuck.
you. Ma'am, part of this requirement for stormwater management is that the builder or homeowner has to execute an operations and maintenance agreement. They pay a fee. That fee is meant to ensure inspections of that whole facility for the next 10 years. So basically every 3 years or so, someone goes out there, looks at the facility, makes sure there's nothing out of order, it's working properly. If there is something that's wrong, like one of these pipes was cracked, or one of the caps was off or missing, or something of that nature, or it was holding water when it shouldn't have been, then that's noted.
Okay.
The owner is notified, and they have to correct that. Okay,
But then
so
we-
there.
So that's the property itself, not whatever's happening surrounding, you know, like Joanna and Doug's house or
It's associated with
the home itself.
the system on this property.
Okay.
That's correct.
And then my comment is regarding what was just said about the Shade Tree Commission being satisfied with their plan. I don't think I would use satisfied. I think they were bound by the code. So I think satisfied would be remaining the trees that are on the property per what they said. So, thank you.
Well, again, I wasn't at the Shade Tree Commission meeting, so all I know is that they recommended approval of the plan, or at least I think they recommended approval of the plan. The Planning Commission doesn't get involved with the Shade Tree Commission's business. That's their responsibility, and we have to abide by their decisions. Whether they're satisfied or not, they made a decision, and we have to live with it.
And if I may, I just want to clear up a couple questions about the waivers. We're not applying for a waiver to eliminate any inspections or steps in the process. What we're asking for is a waiver for preliminary final approval rather than preliminary and final. It is wholly customary in this subdivision process to grant that process. And the plan has been reviewed by the township engineer for both preliminary and final requirements. Second waiver that was discussed had to do with not the proposed driveway, but the existing driveway. The existing,
If I could interrupt you 1 second, because I think it might help for a clear understanding. You're saying that if a waiver is granted so that two-step process becomes one, whatever the requirements were in the first step and the requirements in the second step are all combined into the one.
that is correct.
Thank you.
And then I'm sure your township engineer will confirm that. The second waiver request has to do with the driveway, the existing driveway for 1801. If you notice on the plan, it is an existing shared driveway. It crosses the existing property line. The township engineer has recommended that we request a waiver because we are not modifying that driveway to provide the required 2-foot separation in the design requirements or design standards of the township. It's not that we're creating this issue, it's just an existing issue that would be there regardless of whether or not the lot was subdivided. The waiver's merely a formality to acknowledge an existing condition. They were the two waivers that were discussed in the comments. Thank you.
I don't understand.
No, so what he's explaining is that Lot 1 is the existing house. Right. And it has an existing shared driveway, and the driveway crosses over the property line. So if you have a property line, the driveway cuts over it, which means that there is no setback from the property line to the driveway because the driveway covers over the property line. That's how all of ours are. So that's how it is existing. So the waiver is simply to say, because in a land development plan, when you create two lots from one, both lots would have to be conforming to all of the code requirements. So this is just an acknowledgement that they don't have to conform to the lot requirements for driveway setbacks because they're keeping the existing condition of a shared driveway.
Thank you.
Is that right, though? I thought this also had to do with the new driveway being too close to the new property line.
I think that meets setbacks. That one also doesn't meet setbacks?
The new driveway does meet the 2-foot setback.
Okay, 2 foot.
Yeah.
The existing driveway, it does not.
Chuck, aren't shared driveways permitted in the township?
Yes, but not, they're not suggested, which is, I think, why that 2-foot setback exists. Is there a bit of a discrepancy or about, whether you want less curb cuts versus neighbor disputes when you have a shared driveway? Yeah. So it's a little unclear. It's not in the zoning ordinance, so it's certainly something that can be granted a waiver. The proposed driveway, like I mentioned, is about 2.5 feet from the proposed property line. And Dennis, I don't know, is there an easement or deed restriction for the existing driveway, do we know? No, I was just curious, but. Great.
The existing driveway is not necessarily a shared driveway, they're side by side. When I moved in 20 years ago, we widened it so we both have our own lane. So it's not actually like a shared where you can fit 2 cars down the entire thing. So that's why nobody ever parks on the street from my house because bunch of spots.
Okay, is there anyone on the board that would like to make a motion regarding this application?
No? All right, someone has to. So I would make a motion that we recommend approval of the plan, provided all of the review comments by the engineer are met, including the property pins to clearly delineate the the property line in between the 2 homes, and anyone else, any additions to the motion?
Yeah, I would suggest amending it to say written confirmation of the outcome of the Shade Tree Commission. Maybe that's not within our purview, but I think that if we're relying on that process, before we approve this, we want to make sure that all the processes are completed to proper conclusion, as opposed to relying on a representation orally here. But that's just the lawyer in me, I guess.
I'm sorry, the Shade Tree Commission did recommend approval at their last meeting, subject to a few conditions that I think Dennis had discussed earlier.
That's on the books?
It is, yes. Including there was, that's not the landscape plan, hold on. That the 1 maple be changed to a red maple, 8 trees are planted, the 2 trees were going on the Pitman's property, et cetera. So I think we covered all those earlier in the meeting, but those were the conditions of approval from the Shade Tree.
Then I withdraw my amendment.
So the motion stays then. So the motion on the table is to recommend approval, provided all of the outstanding review comments from the engineer's review letter are met, particularly the property pins for the shared for the property line to clearly delineate the angle of the property line for future reference. Period.
I would like to add a condition that the project engineer evaluate different products in regards to the design of the stormwater management system in an effort to reduce its footprint.
Sorry, Angelo, in an effort to? Can you
Reduce
repeat
its
the last
footprint.
part?
Reduce its footprint.
Anyone seconded?
I'm sorry, I have another question. Can we not have this driveway not be this extra wide driveway for parking in the front? Why do we have to allow that?
You're required
Is
to
that
have.
in the ordinance to have a double wide driveway in the front?
You're required through the zoning ordinance to have 2 off-street parking spaces. That's at least 8 by, thank you, my brain just stopped working there. 9 by 18 size parking spaces that are able to be moved independently from one another. So in this configuration, if they were to make just one skinny driveway up the back, they wouldn't be meeting that regulation and they would need a variance.
Do garages not count as parking spaces?
If you are able to independently move a car in and out and then also have another spot for another car.
Okay. And to confirm, this is a 1-car driveway, correct? I'm sorry, a 1-car garage.
Garage.
Yes, 1-car garage, 2-car driveway. Right, okay. So Jack, I think the answer is yes, then they do have to have that width of a driveway in order to meet the parking requirements, off-street parking requirements.
Okay, we have a motion that's been amended. Is there a second? All right, I'll
Well, it needs
second
to
the
be
motion.
seconded so that, you can still vote no, but it just needs to be seconded.
I second the
Yes.
motion.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any other discussion regarding the motion? Okay, hearing none. Margie, please call roll.
Mr. Capuzzi,
Yes.
Mr. Shannon,
Yes.
Ms. Dobbs,
Yes, and I do just want to briefly state, I appreciate the neighbors coming out so much, and I live on a street where a similar infill house was built. I completely understand your perspective about this, and please know that my yes vote is because there is no legal, there is nothing legal in this plan that isn't meeting code, and I fully understand that it doesn't meet the spirit of the code, but it meets the law of the code, and we are not legally able to reject or deny a plan if it otherwise meets code. So I 100% understand and feel what this is going to do to the community, and I can only hope that the new house and the new occupants of it will be a good fit for the neighborhood. But my vote is yes.
Mr. Fiordemundo,
I'm having a very difficult time with this decision. I agree with Maggie's comments in that it is something that I think destroys the neighborhood. Legally, we can't do anything about that. My vote is yes.
I would just like to add a similar comment to Maggie's, which is I live on a block that's old houses, they're varied houses, but stone and brick, and many older houses that are what realtors call charming. It is charming. And a builder came in and tore down ancient copper beach and a house that has some historical value. The architect put it up, I think, in 1920s. But it's gone, and 3 new houses came in that are not in keeping with the rest of the area. However, in time, trees grow, it begins to blend in, you get kind of used to it. But it's, it's still not the same, but it's the law.
Mr. Garrett?
I'm gonna have to go with no on this. I realize that the saldo might allow this to happen, but I don't think this is in keeping with the comprehensive plan of Haverford Township. I think this is destroying the historic character of that streetscape. And even if none of these buildings are on the historical survey, which I would highly recommend that you do something like that if you live in Haverford Township, because then you're protected from something like this, at least a little bit more than you are right now. I think that this is not good for the neighborhood, and I definitely am for the objections that the neighbors have regarding the historic character. I also have relocated to Haverford Township because I value the mainline character here, and I would hate to see that start to slide away.
Ms. Phillips?
I'm going to have to vote yes, but only because of the legal ramifications of what they're meeting. But I do agree with all the other sentiment that was expressed that this house does not blend with the character of the neighborhood. And I appreciate all of your comments and look forward to discussing this further as we start to look at the new comprehensive plan.
Mr. Marchesor?
I vote yes. I'm not going to make further comments beyond what was eloquently stated by Maggie. She covered it very well and empathically, I would add. I also, though, want to thank you as citizens coming forward and participating in the process. This really highlights the inherent tension between individual property rights and community concerns, which is why I'm so looking forward to the next iteration of the comprehensive plan, and hopefully through that vehicle we'll be able to further advance the more community interests and have fewer of these situations. That remains to be seen, but I'm very hopeful.
Okay, so I guess the motion passed by vote of 6-1. I'd like to thank all the
Angela, I'm
residents.
sorry, you're being
Angelo,
interrupted.
sorry. So if all of us are Haverford Township, Havertown residents, and we're not happy with these laws that are taking away our neighborhood and the reasons why we live here, it's all happening to you guys as well. And the laws need to be modified to protect us because we're the ones who are here investing our lives and our money and our families, and then someone can just take that away because of a dollar sign, and that's sad. So I appreciate you standing up to everything else, and I appreciate all of you understanding. But it's really, I mean, it's sad that we're all in the same boat. And how do we get out of this boat? We're going to be living in the city soon, and we're in our cute little town. So what do we do? What can we do?
Stick around for the next agenda item because.
Stick around.
Well, no, because the next item is the comprehensive plan, so that was mentioned by a couple of my colleagues up here.
Okay.
The comprehensive plan is where we can articulate our vision for the future, and we put into the comprehensive plan the goals that we want to achieve.
Okay.
So these laws aren't set in stone. This is what they say now, but there are ways to amend our zoning and our subdivision codes to strengthen them to achieve our community outcomes, which I think has very clearly been evidenced here in your desire to preserve and impose potentially more architectural design style guides to help preserve our character. I mean, we all live in older homes, whether that's, from the 50s or the 1800s even. So that's something that, we're gonna kick to our wonderful zoning officer, Kelly, to start to develop some of these updates to the codes. I, for one, am looking forward to working on that. I'm a planner by profession as well, so this is something that I do for a living, and so I'm hopeful that, the Planning Commission, working with administration, we can come up with some updates that will better achieve our goals. The comp plan is the best place to start for that, to articulate that. The draft is out now. Kelly, is it on the website yet?
Unfortunately, I got it right before the IT department left, or the person who does that for the IT department left for the day. So it will be up on the website on Monday, and that'll be distributed pretty much everywhere, posting it on, links on social media and all of, any way that we can get it out to people, so that they can take a look.
Okay,
And we'll
thank
be, we'll get to this in a minute, but we'll be announcing a confirmed date for that meeting. It'll be a planning commission meeting just like this one, for the first public meeting, and then we'll have more of them, but that'll be the first one.
Yeah, so there's a whole public comment process that goes along with the comprehensive plan before it can be adopted. So there's plenty of opportunity to make sure that the things that you want to see in the future through ordinances, policies, whatever, get incorporated into the comprehensive plan. So I highly encourage all of you to check out the comp plan, come to more meetings, make your voice heard. It's really important and very impactful to have you here sharing your thoughts and feelings, and it's just really great to have an engaged citizenry. So thank you.
It was interesting going to the Planning Shade Tree Commission. They didn't feel like they had, it's interesting to hear what you're saying, like we don't really have any basis for denying this because of, they meet the codes, but they were not happy that trees were being taken down. You guys are not happy, you wouldn't want it done to you, but you can't really do anything because they're meeting the codes. So it's interesting, just, I don't think
If I
anyone
may
thinks
add.
that their voice is really important enough, but I think it is.
It's important to understand that
Yeah.
in our township, the last version of the comprehensive plan is from decades ago.
Okay.
So fast forward through many changes in our communities and our
Right.
society, this is a wonderful new opportunity to take a fresh look.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you again for everyone for coming out tonight. We really appreciate the input that you provide and the information that you provide. Again, our action tonight is merely a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. At some future date, probably within the next month, I would say, this item will appear on the Board of Commissioners agenda, and you certainly have the right to appear at that meeting and voice the same concerns that you voiced tonight. The commissioners will be the ultimate deciders on this project. But again, they're kind of bound to comply with the rules and regulations of the township, but that doesn't mean that you can't have your voices heard. And to follow up on what Maggie said, the comprehensive plan that we're preparing right now is an important document. It's a blueprint for what we want the township to look like in the next 5 or 10 years. And if you strongly believe that infill development is not something that is good for Haverford Township, you need to make the various boards aware of your concerns so that somehow that concept gets incorporated into the comprehensive plan. We'll be talking a little bit about the comprehensive plan in our next agenda item, so you're welcome to stick around and listen to what we have to say. We're not going to go to any details of the plan. The plan will be posted on the township's website, hopefully tomorrow, and you can look at it and see what some of the ideas that we're kicking around as far as changes in the upcoming years.
I'm sorry,
So
Angela,
again,
just-
thank you very much for coming out. We appreciate your input.
Angela, just to clarify, we are closed tomorrow, so I'm anticipating Monday, having that up on the website, but it'll be up very shortly.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is an update on the comprehensive plan. Okay. For those of you in the audience, the township created a steering committee. It was comprised of various people within the township. I think there's 4 commissioners on the steering committee. There's a member of the zoning board, There's a member of the Parks and Rec Board. There's a member of the Planning Commission, which is me. And there's 3 or 4 private individuals who are involved with business or community activities, bikes and bike trails and pathways and things like that. So we have a pretty diverse group of individuals who are on the board who are reviewing or preparing the comprehensive plan. And the basis for the plan is the responses from a questionnaire that was sent out pre-COVID to all, it was available to all the residents in the township to comment on what they think is necessary for the township to implement in the next few years. And also there was a couple work sessions open to the public where people were invited to attend and present their ideas and opinions. So having said all that, we've been working diligently for the last year or so since we were able to start having meetings again. And we've gotten to the point where we have a draft plan that's been prepared. The plan, as Kelly mentioned, will be available on the website on Monday, hopefully. And the Planning Commission will have a hearing, a public hearing, probably in early June, to review the contents of the draft comprehensive plan, to present Planning Commission's opinions, listen to questions and comments from the public in general, and eventually make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners for the final content of the comprehensive plan. The Board of Commissioners will then have a public hearing where they will again solicit input from the general public before they adopt the plan.
So
Hopefully we
when
can-
do we start reviewing this with the public in the planning
You're
commission?
going to, all right. I think Kelly has copies that she's going to distribute this evening, if she hasn't already done that.
I
Okay?
have a copy. Yeah, I'm wondering, you know,
So,
what's
so
the
you
next
take,
step?
you take the next few weeks to review the plan. If you have any questions about its content or, you know, what we're thinking about or whatever, you can send them to Kelly, you send them to me, we can forward them on to our consultant who's been helping us through this process, and we'll get answers to you as best we can prior to the public hearing. We don't want to have any private discussions among the board itself. We want to keep this as open and transparent as possible as far as our reaction to the plan and our comments on the plan. So eventually, like I said, in our first meeting in June, I think is where we're looking to have a public hearing and review the plan both as a board and to listen to comments and questions from the public.
The first meeting in June?
That is our tentative date. We were originally looking at about 30 days between the plan being distributed and the first public meeting before the Planning Commission, although that falls on the Thursday before Memorial Day, which we thought may not be the best idea to hold a public meeting where we really want citizen participation right before Memorial Day. So that's why we pushed it off, or we're looking to push it off until
The 9th.
June 9th. But I do want to confirm that with the rest of the steering committee before I have that totally set in stone. I will have an absolute date by early next week. Once I just confirm that with the group and we can all move forward. And I need to confirm that with the consultant to make sure that he is available to be here because he will be presenting, he will be presenting the plan to the Planning Commission and the members of the public.
Kelly?
Yes.
Can I rely on it being no earlier than the 9th? Because I'm going to be going out of the country and it would be nice not to miss this.
Well, I can't do earlier than the 9th.
But let's see,
Oh,
I was asking,
I'm sorry.
will it be the case that the meeting will be no earlier than the 9th?
No, it will not be any earlier. Or, I shouldn't say that. I can't imagine that anybody on the steering committee is going to want to hold that meeting on the
sooner?
Thursday before Memorial Day, which
Okay.
would be the earliest meeting.
Gotcha.
But I don't want to speak for them.
Can we just make sure that the consultant knows that we're planning on meeting on June 9th to do this now?
Right.
As soon as
Well,
possible.
I want to check, again, I will send out an email to the whole comprehensive plan steering committee, confirm that that is the date that everyone wants to move forward with, and I will have that confirmed by early next week.
I'll reiterate my comments of the last meeting, which is that anything less than June 9th would be, in my view, not adequate time for the citizens of our township to have a chance to read the plan, discuss it, meet, and have comments. So I would think at least at the earliest June 9th.
Yeah, but by law, we're required to provide 45 days review period to the school district, to adjacent municipalities, and I believe to the Delaware County Planning Commission. So assuming this document gets posted on Monday, I think June 9th is a fair date to expect to have a public hearing. The 26th of May, I personally would be opposed to that, only because I'm going to be in California, so I'm not going to be around, and I don't think it's fair to the rest of the board members that I not be present at the meeting since I'm on the steering committee. So it definitely won't be on the 26th if I have anything to say about it.
I can't
so-
imagine that the rest of the steering
So
committee wouldn't
I
agree
think
with you,
June
Ange.
9th is a good target date for now. But again, the steering committee will make that final decision and we'll go from there. But I think by getting a copy of the draft plan tonight, you folks should have more than enough time to get familiar with it, to understand it, and to develop whatever questions or comments you might have. And then to hopefully get answers to your questions before we sit down and meet with the public in general.
Like the
Anybody have
sentence
any-
on page 27 that says, many buildings contribute to the historic streetscape along a block, even if the building is not
Jack, I'm sorry,
significant by
Jack,
itself.
Jack, we're not,
Jack,
we're not
We're not
going-
reviewing it tonight, Jack. Okay? We'll review it. If you have questions, like I said, you can submit them to me or to Kelly. We'll get them to the consultant, and we'll get you answers. But we're not going to have a conversation on it at this meeting or at any meeting until we meet with the public.
You mentioned some working sessions that happened prior to this draft. Are there plans for any of those prior to the public meeting? And if so, how do you get invited?
Unfortunately, we had those meetings. We had a meeting at the Crec Center. We had one or two viral meetings that happened. We're pretty far along in the process to have any more meetings like that. But as I said, at the public meeting with the Planning Commission and the public hearing with the Board of Commissioners, you'll have time to present your views and your comments. And again, if you think that infill development is a critical issue that the township needs to address moving forward, then you need to bring that to our attention.
Yeah, so we'll be reviewing the comp plan at a planning commission meeting where you can come and provide comment. And then there's going to be at least 2 board of commissioners, because we'll have one, because the board will have to, essentially the board will have a hearing, will have a meeting to discuss it. Then there's a 45-day comment period at a minimum. and then the board will hold a hearing to adopt it. By the time we get to the adoption stage, it's pretty much done and all the edits have been made. So, right, Cal, there's one planning commission and then at least one.
I suspect we're going to be at the planning commission more than once.
More than once. Okay, that's good.
I can't imagine that we're not gonna, come back with some revisions after we get recommendations from the planning commission and the members of the public.
Yeah.
Residents are welcome to any of
Absolutely, these are all
yes.
public meetings.
Yep. And there is, so in the comp plan, once you get it, there is a copy of the responses from the Survey Monkey. Did you do that one?
I've seen it it's online somewhere. I did my research.
Okay,
That's why I referenced the comp plan.
there you go. Yeah, so that does give you what kind of questions were asked, and then the text of it will give you the specifics in terms of what the recommendations are for implementation. And so that's going to be, in my opinion, that's kind of where the meat of the comp plan is the recommendation, implementation recommendations, because that's then what we as the commission staff can then actually do. So it gives us a roadmap to move forward and take action.
So what we're talking about is the comprehensive revision plan from the 1988 plan. Because there's a lot in the 88 plan that should have protected what we're talking about here tonight, which seems to be not reviewed, or I think there's enough bite into it.
So I think the other thing too is that comprehensive plans are wonderful things to have, but oftentimes municipalities update them because they're required to legally, and then they just sit on a shelf. So it's really incumbent upon us as commission members, on the Board of Commissioners, on the staff, on residents to continue to reference this as a resource to make sure that it's actually being implemented. Because you can make all of the great recommendations you want, but if we don't move that policy forward, then it's going to be nothing more than a pretty book on a shelf.
I didn't see any revisions since '88, even if there were.
There was two addendum. There was the addition of the Historic Resource Survey in 1994 and the Eagle Road and Haverford Road corridors in 2009.
Are they on record somewhere?
Yeah, they're on the website. They're available.
They're on website?
They're on the township website, sure.
Are they scanned? Oh, okay.
Okay, so everybody's
Do we have
clear
PDFs?
on
Like
where we're
reading
headed with
PDFs?
this plan? And what to expect in the next 6 to 8 weeks?
Yes. Thank you,
Okay.
Angelo.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll move on to the last item on our agenda this evening, which is the review of the minutes from our March 10th, 2022 meeting. I'm assuming everybody's had a chance to review those minutes. Anybody have any corrections or changes they'd like to make? Hearing none, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from our March 10th, 2022 meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 I'll
Opposed?
abstain. I'll abstain. I wasn't here.
All right, one abstaining. Opposed? No. Okay, motion passes. Anybody else want to bring up anything or have any comments or want to share any information before we adjourn? No? Okay.
Actually,
Well-
Angela, I'm just throw out one thought. Seems to me with a massive document like this comprehensive plan, maybe.
Can you speak up a little, Lou?
Sorry, I
can-
thought by turning this on, you'd be able to hear me, but I'll go right into
I
the
can
mic.
hear you now.
How's
Okay.
that? Okay.
That's good.
I'm
Thank you.
thinking that maybe we want to plan on just taking on a certain number of sections of the document in the first meeting and then the other half in a second meeting, but maybe that's not how it operates. You tell me.
The consultant seemed very, very confident that he could get through
Whole shebang.
the whole shebang in one meeting. whether we, I mean, again, I'm confident that we're gonna need more than one meeting to get through revisions and come back until everybody's happy enough with it to move forward with a recommendation to the board. So I do think that there will be more than one meeting, but I think that it would be more, move things along a little bit faster if we were to, kind of dive totally into it in the first meeting, get the recommendations, make comments about it, and then try to clean it up just before sending it to the board.
And again, I want to reiterate what Maggie said. I mean, the comp plan is just it's a blueprint. And unless the township moves forward with ordinance revisions and things like that to implement the suggestions made in the comp plan, nothing's going to change. So we have to follow up. We have to make sure we follow up on the comp plan with the appropriate ordinance amendments and changes and what have you, so we can make these things happen.
Kelly, how do we do
Second.
ordinance amendments here?
What's-
Are you responsible for doing a lot of the ordinance writing, or do we have a consultant that we use?
No, that's all me.
Okay.
With the comp plan and the ordinances amended in response to that, we may seek a separate consultant. We may use the consultant that we've been using for the comp plan. We actually have had a few of those conversations, just because that's a much bigger undertaking than just, amending a fence code.
Right.
So we haven't really addressed that fully of how we're going to approach that yet. But,
Okay.
it's going to be done. I'm very excited.
I mean, in whatever way it's appropriate, since I also do this for a living, I would love to help in as much capacity as I possibly can, whether that's drafting ordinances or if you need me to edit ordinances. I mean, I think a lot of the points raised tonight are things that have been, I mean, it's part of the reason why I wanted to sit on the planning commission is because I saw a lot of tear down and rebuilds in my neighborhood, and I looked at the code and realized that we have a very, very weak code when it comes to this type of development. So, however it makes sense, once we get to the implementation phase and we're ready to do ordinance writing, count me in.
Yeah, absolutely. I will absolutely take you up on it. It's going to be a huge job, and I will take all the hands I can get.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty daunting, I think, but
Absolutely.
We'll chip away at it and prioritize everything, and yeah, I'm excited.
Maggie, the planning commission has to review all those ordinance amendments anyhow, so you'll have that opportunity to review it. And it may end up, we just rewrite the whole zoning ordinance and the whole subdivision ordinance. I mean, that's happened in the past in other municipalities. There's so many changes, it becomes difficult to try to modify something that doesn't work now with new ideas. So you may end up rewriting the whole thing.
I know. I call them Frankenstein ordinances, when you just like patch them all together and they kind of work, but not really.
Right.
So our current zoning ordinance, if you look at it, says that it was written or adopted in its entirety in 1974. However, if you go back and look at the original ordinance from 1925, there is still verbatim language that has been carried over for 100 years, which, yes, so clean sweep, I think, is needed, but we'll get there shortly. Let's get through this first.
Okay, so did I make a motion to adjourn? I will make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thanks, guys, and thanks for bearing with me tonight. I'm sorry I
Thanks,
wasn't able
Angelo.
to be there.